Hey NextGen, Troy and John here. Welcoming you back to today's episode of NextGen In-House. We're continuing our Throwback Thursdays with a message from a special guest in a little bit that we really hope you guys enjoy. Just a little bit of a housekeeping. We just want to encourage you guys to keep up the commenting, and if you haven't been commenting, make sure you start commenting on anything we upload. The news, these videos, our verses of the days, and our psalms at night. It's just encouraging for us to go and see you guys saying if you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, what your thoughts and opinions are on different things. It just goes a long way with us. And also, if you could just make sure to record yourselves doing any of the challenges that we say in our Next Gen News videos, and then send them into a leader, that'd be great as well.
Yeah, a few of you guys have already figured it out. So it's pretty cool that you sent that in. Hey, we have a special treat for you guys tonight, as Troy was saying. I know we said we were going to do Throwback Thursdays with Next Geners. So our next speaker, I want to say, is not an Next Gener, but someone that we met on our mission trip when we went to Pine Ridge, South Dakota in 2018. Her name's Mariella. Mariella was one of the leaders out there. She did the praise and worship. She sings like an angel. She's got a really super sweet spirit about her, and was someone who just really connected with our group. So we just adopted her in. So I guess she is an Next Gener. So we're excited for the word that she has for you guys tonight. So get out your Bibles and your notebooks and enjoy.
Hello, NextGen. I'm so glad to be with you guys today. My name is Mariella, and I had the privilege of meeting some of you back in 2018 when you guys were on your missions trip in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. So I'm really glad to be able to share a little bit with you just in what God has been reminding me of and teaching me of throughout this entire mess. Let's call it a mess. So I don't know about you guys, but there's been a lot of change even in the past 2 or 3 weeks. And there's been a lot of feelings and emotions that have come along with that. And something that God has been reminding me of is that He is a constant and there's nothing that can shake Him. And because of that, we can rest in Him, we can run to Him. He is a refuge, He is a strong tower, He is a rock that won't be shaken. So I think that the fact that God is constant has been something that I've found so much comfort in throughout all this change. And with that, there's been two specific things that God has brought to my mind that I want to share with you guys today. They kind of tackle this idea of God being a refuge from two different perspectives. The first passage that I want to turn to is in John, and it's in chapter 11. And you guys might be familiar with the story of Jesus and how he interacted with the family of Lazarus. And when he came, Mary and Martha were like, oh, well, yeah, so our brother's already dead. This is not great. And there were people crying, there were people mourning. So the one verse that I'm going to focus on is verse 35. And it says, Jesus wept. And I know a lot of people are like, that's the shortest verse in the Bible. There you go. I just think that's super profound because not only did he weep, but he wept even though he knew the healing and the deliverance that was going to come. He wept because he knew that their hearts were hurting and that they were broken over losing this person that they love. So I think that as we're all mourning and grieving different things in this time, whether it be, losing our community at school or our community at NextGen or having a sick family member, remember that Jesus weeps with you and that He's with you in those moments. And that's one way that we could see God being constant, one way that we can see God being a source of strength for us. And then the other thing that God has been reminding me of, which has been a little bit more difficult, I think, in this time, has been in Romans chapter 12. And it says in verse 9, let love be genuine, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. I keep telling myself, cling to what is good, cling to what is good. And it comes out of this passage in Romans. And that's a really hard thing to say when there's a lot of really bad things happening in the world around us. But I don't think that it's telling us to try to find good in some really bad situations, because sometimes situations are just bad. But I think that what it's reminding us of is that God is choosing to intervene and to work in ways where we can find good and where He is the source of good. So for me, I'm clinging to the fact that I have a home to be in right now. I'm clinging to the fact that I have technology and I can be sharing this with you guys. I can be talking with my friends. I'm clinging to the fact that I'm still able to get an education. Um, and I'm just clinging to the fact that I know that God is present in this with me. And that just because things are hard right now doesn't mean that He left, doesn't mean that He looked away, because we know that He never leaves and He never forsakes. So I pray that this is a little bit of an encouragement for you guys, that as you're dealing with all these changes and these different emotions, that we can know that God is constant, that He is good, and that we can be reminded that He weeps with us, but that there is still good to hold on to. So as we close, I just want to share with you guys a prayer from the Book of Common Prayer by Shane Claiborne, and it's called An Affirmation of Faith. And it says, Lord, you have always given bread for the coming day, and though I am poor, today I believe. Lord, you have always given strength for the coming day, and though I am weak, today I believe. Lord, you have always given peace for the coming day, and though of anxious heart, today I believe. Lord, you have always kept me safe in trials, and now, tired as I am, today I believe. Lord, you have always marked the road for the coming day, and though it may be hidden, today I believe. Lord, you have always lightened this darkness of mine, and though the night is here, today I believe. Lord, you have always spoken when time was right, and though you be silent, today I believe. So remember that circumstances don't define God, that God rises above that, and that He chooses to meet us in that. So I hope that this was an encouragement for you guys, and I hope to see you guys one day soon. Have a great night. Bye.
Hey, I love those 2 points that she made in there. One, that God is constant, and two, to hold fast, and just the image that she paints about Jesus, who is like the exact replica of God. Like Jesus said, "If you see me, you've seen the Father." But how He's just so compassionate in that situation and circumstance when He shows up on the scene. Where Lazarus' two sisters are like, "Hey, Jesus, it's too late.
Right.
Like, he's dead."
Right.
You know, and just to see that side of God, where He has such empathy for us, and he understands the emotions that's connected to the things that we're going through in our own life.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
Yeah. And what I love too about that story, in the beginning when he first gets word that Lazarus is sick, he's like, that God is going to receive glory from this situation. Before anything even happens, he's like, I know what's going to happen, and I know that God's going to receive glory from that situation.
Yeah, and she mentions that,
Yeah.
right? She says, even though Jesus knew what He was about to do,
Yeah.
He still was moved with compassion. Right. And like all throughout the Gospels, that is what motivates God. Right. His compassion for His people.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
His overwhelming and outstanding love for
right.
each and every one of us.
It's such a cool theme that you see throughout every story. Like in this, like in the Israelites, like they go into a horrible situation, but God has compassion for them and is still with them in that. But what's even cool is that even before it happens, He's like, I know this is going to happen. I know I'm going to get you through it. And I know that glory is going to become of it all. And that's like the coolest theme in the world to see. And that's a true God. That's a real Father. Not like, oh, if something bad happens, I hope I'll be able to, like, no. Like, I know what's going to happen to you, and I know I'm going to take care of you in that season.
Yeah, and then we have us on the other side, where there's that verse of scripture that says that some trust in chariots and some trust in horses, but we will trust in the Lord our God.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need a check to say, what am I trusting
Right.
in right now? Like, what is all my hope in? Am I trying to gather things up
Right.
for a rainy day?
Right.
Or and I think, and we talked about it earlier, and what I've been getting out of a lot of this is like Jesus's prayer, where he talks about staying in, like, give us this day our daily bread.
Right.
You know, when he gives us that perfect way of how to pray unto the Father.
Right.
But it's day to day.
Right.
It's right now.
Yeah.
Like, what do I need now?
Right.
Because we can get caught up in what we think we need for the future and
Yeah.
what we can store up in our barns and right, and yet Jesus is always pointing us back to relationship
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah, that's
Relationships with him, and out of our relationships with him,
Right.
it flows into our relationships with other people.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I love like these throwback Thursdays that we're doing. Even our relationship with Mariella,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
It was birthed out of our relationship with Christ. You know, we have a common
Right.
we have a common love for
Yeah.
God, and through that, we're brothers and sisters
Yeah.
in Christ.
No, it's really cool.
You know,
And it's cool you mentioned up storing up, and I know in our earlier conversations that we were having, you brought up the story of the man in the storehouse with his crops, and the story of the talents just came into my head, and how, like, the workers, right, they all had these talents, and they all did something with them, and they all multiplied their talents, but then the one that didn't was the fool of the story, essentially, right? But I just think of how relatable that is now. Everyone has a talent. Everyone has a blessing from God. Everyone has a way to turn those blessings from God into something. But now more than ever, I feel like is that jeopardizing time where you could waste your talent and you could waste it on things that aren't going to matter, and store up the things like in the conversation we had before, and not have these like a bountiful harvest, more or less,
Yeah.
of those different things.
yeah. And I think the key to that is staying connected to Christ.
Right, absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
and you know, apart from me, Jesus said, you can't do anything. You know, he didn't say you can do some things. He said you can't do nothing. And it means abiding in the vine. It means staying connected to Christ, and that you can do any place, anywhere, whether you're in solitary confinement, right?
Right.
I mean, Paul and Silas in the jail,
Right.
they started praising God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You could do that any place. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it doesn't matter whether there's a multitude of people around
Right.
or you're by yourself. You could still do that.
Still praise God, man. There's this really cool verse in Hebrews that just really puts a nice bow on everything that Mariella just said. So let's read it. So it's Hebrews chapter 4, verses 14 through 16, and I'm actually going to be reading out of the Passion Translation. So here's what it says. So then, we must cling in faith to all we know to be true. For we have a magnificent king priest, Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who rose into the heavenly realm for us, and now sympathizes with us in our frailty. He understands humanity, for as a man, our magnificent king priest was tempted in every way, just as we are, and conquered sin. So now we come freely and boldly to where love is enthroned, to receive mercy's kiss and discover the grace we urgently need to strengthen us in our time of weakness.
Wow, what a great picture of a loving God.
Yeah, right.
So compassionate, so understanding, sympathetic. Thanks so much, Mariella, for sharing an awesome word with us tonight. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great night. We'll see you next time on NextGen In-House.